Viral, the oldest world in the Virillian Empire, trembled beneath a blood-red sky. On the marble floor of the Grand Council chamber, Ambassador Silara pressed her palm against the central console. "Send it now," she whispered, voice tight with fear. A soft hum filled the hall. The galaxy-wide distress signal began its lonely journey into deep space. For centuries, the Virillians had been the galaxy's stewards. Their fleets patrolled trade routes. Their scholars guided younger races with calm wisdom. But now the Kotor swarmed from the dark edge of known space, crushing entire systems as if they were nothing more than lost rocks. Virillian warships retreated. Outposts fell in hours. Even the ancient planet Helrin, fortress of the First Fleet, burned under Kotor fire before its full defenses could rise. Silara watched the dark lens of the signal emitter as it blinked one last time. Then it went silent. She straightened. Around her, the counselors wore black mourning robes. All were exhausted. Many had wept openly these last 3 nights. Silara raised her voice. "We have done all we could." Her words echoed across the empty chamber. A low, metallic hum answered before anyone else could speak. The communication banks flared to life. A voice came through, calm, confident, and distinctly human. "We read your distress call," the voice said. It carried neither accent nor hesitation. "We will help you." Gasps rippled around the chamber. Many hands flew to mouths. One young counselor, Voan, cried out. But no one authorized Earth's entry into the council. Silara's fingers danced across the console. "Identify yourselves," she ordered. Silence, then a soft click. Images appeared on the holoscreen. A streamlined ship of gleaming white metal. No known Virillian engine design. No Kotor markings. Its shape was simple, a long hull, smooth curves, and a symbol neither species recognized. Beneath the ship hovered a single word in human script. Aegis. Aegis. The name meant shield in ancient Earth lore. Silara recalled the old Virillian translations. Earth or Terra. A wild world of blue oceans and green forests, far beyond the Empire's usual borders. "What do you require?" she asked, steadying her voice. The human captain appeared next, a woman in plain dark uniform, standing tall and unreadable. She raised her chin. "We require safe passage to your frontier. Then we will engage the Kotor. We do not negotiate." Counselors whispered among themselves. To refuse would mean certain death for the wounded systems begging for relief. To accept, no one knew how to accept such unknown power. Silara bowed slightly. "Passage granted, but you must follow our protocols." Protocol was the language of order. It bound the Empire together. The human captain inclined her head once, crisply. "Understood." Then the holo cut off. Immediately, Virillian intelligence officers scrambled to relay landing coordinates. The Grand Council declared emergency status. Within minutes, the answer was given. Permit humans to deploy forces at the edge of Virillian space. Every ship available would escort the newcomers. As the counselors dispersed, Silara paused. She studied the holoscreen where Aegis had hovered. She tried to read the captain's calm, pale face. Every instinct screamed that humanity was a wild card. But there was no choice. 5 light days beyond Viral, the Virillian frontier fleet formed a protective crescent around a single human ship. Captain Maris Hales, tall, dark-haired, eyes like polished steel, stood on Aegis's bridge. Her crew moved silently, each gesture precise. She watched the holoscreen showing Virillian ships, then looked beyond to the swirling red storm of Kotor vessels. Her first officer, Lieutenant Garrick, leaned forward. "They trust us, Captain. We proceed." Hales nodded once. "Proceed, but stay sharp." Her voice carried the weight of unspoken history. Earth had fought many wars. In every battle, humans had endured horrors that no Virillian mind could imagine. And yet, they had always risen stronger. Aegis's engines flared. A ripple in space, a flash of blue-white light, and the ship vanished. Seconds later, The frontier fleet saw it again, just beyond the Kotor vanguard. Energy lances lanced out from Aegis's hull, striking Kotor cruisers. One after another, the alien ships collapsed in silent explosions. On Viral, screens lit up with live feeds. Counselors watched in stunned silence as Aegis carved a path through the Kotor line. No shields held. No evasive maneuvers saved them. The Kotor, creatures once feared across half the galaxy, fell like brittle statues. Solara felt her knees weaken. She gripped the console. "How?" she whispered. In the champion's chamber, Minister Orin rose, face ashen. "We summoned gods," he said, voice barely audible. "And they came as monsters." The battle ended within moments. Where thousands of Kotor ships had prowled, only drifting debris remained. Aegis reappeared before the frontier fleet, engines cool. Its captain's voice came across the comms. "Threat neutralized. We await further orders." Solara bowed her head. "Welcome to the Virilian Empire, heroes from Earth." As applause broke out in the chamber, she felt a cold knot in her chest. Aid had arrived. But at what cost? Humanity had answered the call. And now, the Virilians would learn that some help carries a price far greater than any world can pay. Humanity arrives, but not like expected. 5 days after the Virilian Council first heard the human reply, the strange ship Aegis slipped through the Empire's frontier gate. Virilian escort ships flanked its shining white hull. Thousands watched on holoscreens as the humans made their entrance. On the bridge of the flagship Viral's Pride, Admiral Telner leaned over his console. "They are silent," he muttered. The holoscreen showed no throng of technicians running to stations. No urgency, just a calm bridge with humans standing at ease. Below, on the landing decks of Viral, the first human Marines disembarked. They wore dark armor that seemed to shift under the red sky. Their faces were partly hidden by visors, but their posture was proud. They carried weapons unlike any Virilian design. Long, sleek rifles glowing faint blue. Ambassador Solara met them at the docking bay. Her heart pounded. She expected a hearty salute, a flood of speech, or a show of power. Instead, she saw one human captain step forward, Captain Maris Hales, the same woman from the holoscreen. She removed her helmet, revealing pale skin and steely gray eyes. Her black hair was tied back, simple and practical. Solara offered a formal Virilian bow. Hales inclined her head once, curtly. No words came. Then Solara gestured to the empty hall. "Welcome to Viral," she said. "We are honored." Hales's eyes swept the silent crowd. She spoke at last, voice quiet but firm. "Your distress call drew us here. We keep our word." She paused, looking beyond Solara at the distant Kotor threat. "Show us the battlefield." Solara blinked. "Your fleet is prepared. You may deploy immediately." As human squads prepared, Virilian technicians crowded around the newcomers' equipment. They pressed buttons, poked at panels, and whispered in awe. Each time a rifle glowed to life, a small murmur of excitement spread. No one could guess how it worked. It felt more like magic than science. In the council's war room, Minister Orin slammed a fist on the table. "They do not follow our protocols," he roared. "They refused our weapons checks. They ignored our scanners." Around him, advisors whispered. "They answer only to their captain. They work in silence. They scan our defenses." Solara stood apart. She remembered the calm on Aegis's bridge, the lack of eagerness, the strange pride in Hales's eyes. Part of her wondered, why do they act this way? At dusk, the humans loaded their rifles onto small transport skiffs. The Virilian frontier fleet held position near the Kotor line. Hundreds of red Kotor cruisers waited. Their jagged hulls bristled with weapons. Human transports touched down on the nearest moon. Captain Hales led a small squad of Marines onto the rocky soil. They moved in perfect silence, scanning the horizon. Not one word was spoken. Lieutenant Garrick, Hales's second in command, tapped his wrist display. Sensors show high Kator activity ahead. He shook his head. They expect a battle plan. Hales did not look surprised. She simply stepped forward and pointed her rifle. Blue light pulsed, and the rifle fired. A single round struck a Kotor scout drone in mid-flight. It exploded in a silent bloom of fire and debris. The Marines exchanged glances. Then they moved as one, advancing without hesitation. They took out 2 more drones before the Kotor realized what happened. When the alien troops finally raised their weapons, the humans had already vanished into rocky crags. Back on Virillian intelligence intercepted Kotor reports. The aliens were terrified. They spoke of humans as ghost killers. They said the Marines appeared and vanished, leaving no trace except destroyed machines. The Kotor retreated, their confidence shattered. Ambassador Silura listened in horror. They must be using cloaking, she guessed. Stealth technology. Minister Oren shook his head. No, these men move in plain sight. They vanish only when they choose. He stared at the flickering holobridge feed. They are wrong. We invited helpers, not wraiths. That evening, Captain Hales returned to Aegis. Inside the ship's common area, she entered a room filled with screens. Each showed data streams from Virillian systems, shield frequencies, star charts, defense grid layouts. Her crew monitored every feed. Garrick approached her. They grow uneasy, he noted. They are alarmed by our methods. Hales nodded. We do not seek their comfort. We seek results. She tapped a screen, isolating a Virillian planet under Kotor siege. They begged for aid. We give them aid. They will regret underestimating our price. In the Grand Council chamber on Viril, Silura addressed the councilors. Her voice trembled. The humans saved our frontier fleet, but they broke our trust. They refused to share plans. They act by their own orders. An elder counselor, Vatha, spoke. We must ask them to leave. Oren slammed his fist again. No. Without humans, we will fall. His eyes gleamed. We trade our freedom for their help. We have no choice. Silura clenched her fists. She thought of the pale face of Captain Hales, the silent precision of her Marines, and the Kotor drones falling like rain. This help felt like a trap. Late that night, Silura made her decision. She slipped away from the capital halls and headed for the frontier scanners. She needed answers. She tapped into the Virillian archives, old files on Earth, on humanity. She learned of ancient wars, world against world, planet against planet, where humans had survived impossible odds. A memory file caught her eye. Project Excalibur. It described a weapon humans built at the end of a great war, a weapon that could disable entire fleets with a single pulse. She stared at the schematic, her heart pounding. A voice crackled in her ear. It was Oren. Ambassador Silura, where are you? She did not answer. Instead, she hid the files on a private drive. If Virillians were to survive alongside humans, they must know the true cost first. Outside the window, the stars shimmered. Aegis waited in silent vigil. And in its calm light, Silura saw the shape of a monster, one the Virillians did not yet understand. The first strike. At dawn, the twin suns rose over the shattered moon of Tralvine. From the low orbit, the human ship Aegis watched in silence. Captain Maris Hales stood on the bridge, arms crossed, as Lieutenant Garrick brought up the tactical display. Kotor fleet in range, Garrick said. On the holoscreen, hundreds of jagged alien ships fanned out like dark petals. They expect reinforcements from Viril's pride. Hales nodded once. They will get something else. Below, on the rocky surface, human Marines moved into position. They wore light exosuits that darkened in the sunlight. Each Marine carried a rifle that glowed pale blue at the barrel tip. Nothing about this was ordinary. Captain Hales and a small squad descended in a stealth skiff. When they touched down, the ground shook with distant explosions. The Kator had bombarded the moon to flush out human troops. It left deep craters and jagged rock formations. Hales pointed toward a ridge. Over there, we set up the cannon. Her team obeyed without question. From the skiff's undercarriage, they pulled out a long tube. It clicked into place on a flat rock. This was the Zephyr cannon, a human weapon built for one purpose: to strike hard. Once. Sergeant Alana Price bent to adjust the targeting array. "Coordinates locked," she reported. Her voice was steady, though her hands shook with excitement. "Good," Hale said. She tapped her comm. "Aegis, ready to fire on our mark." On the bridge above, Garrick touched a panel. "Cannon is online. Awaiting your order." Hales gave a slight smile. "Give the order." Moments later, the quiet of Tralveen shattered. The Zephyr cannon's barrel glowed bright white. Then it pulsed. A wave of energy sprang forward, invisible at first, until it hit the Kator fleet like a silent hammer. Ships exploded outward in crumpled metal. Hulls buckled, reactors overloaded, and the hollow roar of destroyed engines echoed through space. On the ground, Marines watched in stunned silence. They had trained for this, yet nothing could prepare them for the sight of hundreds of alien cruisers collapsing at once. The sky burned with debris. Hale stood firm. She raised her rifle and fired a single shot at a drifting enemy frigate. The beam cut through steel and energy shield in one swift line. The ship disintegrated in a flash of blue light. A Kator frigate nearby veered away in panic. Its shields flickered. It tried to accelerate, but the Zephyr cannon pulse had damaged its engines. It spun helplessly before drifting out of control. "I count 80 ships destroyed," Garrick said, voice tight. "Their formation is breaking." Hales allowed herself a nod. "Then we proceed." She tapped her comm again. "Phase 2. Move in." Humans advanced up the rocky slopes. They moved as one. No shouting. No hesitation. Each step measured. Each rifle held ready. A few Kator Marines appeared on the horizon, their tall frames and spiny armor unmistakable. They raised gauntlet guns and fired wild bursts of green energy. The humans did not break. They pressed on, firing in controlled bursts. Each beam found its target. Kator Marines fell, their bodies dissolving into motes of dust. Those who survived tried to retreat but found no shelter among the jagged rocks. Within minutes, the ground battle was over. Only silence remained. The humans stood in the ruined valley, rifles lowered, watching the few wounded Kator lie still. Back on Aegis, the fallout from a cannon blast set off alarm bells. Hales watched the display as the last Kator ship dissociated from the fleet. "They are running," she said flatly. Garrick frowned. "Running?" "They were attacking Virelian worlds 5 days ago." Hales turned from the holoscreen. "Sometimes, knowing what hunts you changes your tactics." "How do they know us?" Garrick asked. "We have no records of contact with Kator." Hales did not answer. She only stared at the holoscreen showing the fleeing cruisers. "Prepare the skiffs," she ordered. "We board the nearest vessel." A small boarding team entered the crippled Kator cruiser. Its corridors were dark and twisted, lined with alien symbols. Humans moved quickly, their helmets scanning for life signs. In the bridge, a lone Kator officer sat slumped in the command chair. The alien's eyes glowed faint red. Sergeant Price knelt beside the officer. "It's alive," she said softly. The officer's eyes flicked open. It stared at Price and hissed. "Humans," the creature rasped. Its voice trembled. You came." Price exchanged a look with Hales. "Why are you here?" Hales asked. "To conquer. To kill us." The officer shook its head violently. No. We fled. From you." Garrick stepped forward. "You fled from Earth." The Kator officer's chest heaved. "Earth," it whispered. "They came ages ago. They fought. They burned world after world. We hide, but they found us. We fled to Viral." Hales stood still, processing the words. So you attacked the Virilian Empire only because you ran out of hiding places. The officer nodded. You hunt. You don't stop until all gone. Silence fell. Humans and Kator locked eyes across an impossible gulf of hate and fear. Hales exhaled. Prepare our prisoners, she said softly, and send your report. On the bridge of Aegis, Hales looked out at the wrecked fleet. The Virilians begged for help, she said. They got answers. Garrick lowered his eyes. And they don't like the price. Hale's gaze hardened. We do not worry about their comfort, only our goals. Outside, the last Kotor cruisers disappeared into a distant nebula. The frontier lay open once more, but in the silence, the humans knew something profound. They were no longer guests in this war. They were its masters, and every corner of the galaxy would soon learn why humanity was feared above all. Secrets of Earth. In the heart of the Virilian capital, Celera sat alone in her private study. The walls were lined with glowing data panels that showed every corner of the Empire's domain. Yet her mind was full of questions. She had seen the humans' power. She had heard the Kotor's fear. Now she needed to know more about these strange allies from Earth. Celera reached for a secure holodrive labeled Project Excalibur and inserted it into the reader. The drive unlocked with a soft hiss. Ancient files filled the screen. Star charts, battle records, and weapon schematics. At the center lay a single folder marked Final Wars of Terra. She opened it and found logs from Earth's last great conflict. The words were simple, but the meaning was terrifying. On dozens of worlds, humans had fought wars that spanned centuries. Entire continents had turned to ash. Civilizations had bowed or been erased. Uncounted billions had died. Her heart pounded as she scrolled through images of ruined cities, ships disintegrating under powerful energy beams, and final transmissions pleading for mercy. One file stood out, a schematic of a weapon called the Ares Pulse. According to the logs, a single shot could disable every starship in a system within minutes. Shields, engines, weapons, all cut off in one wave. Celera whispered, "This is why they act so cold." Meanwhile, aboard Aegis, Captain Hales reviewed the intercepted data from Virilian archives. In the ship's secure vault, human intelligence officers compared Virilian and Kotor technology. They exchanged quiet nods. Every confirmation made Hales more certain of humanity's path. She closed her eyes for a moment. On Earth, her ancestors had survived on a world of tectonic fury and endless storms. They had faced threats that dwarfed any alien invasion, nature itself. Over millennia, they had built weapons not just to win battles, but to prevent future terror. Their motto, never again. Hales turned to her communications officer. "Send the briefing to all captains," she ordered. "They must understand why the Virilians fear us." On Viral, Celera left her study just as dusk settled over the city. She hurried through marble corridors to the Council's intelligence wing. There she met with Commander Vothan, head of all covert operations. "I have seen their files," she said sharply. "Earth's wars were absolute, and their weapons unimaginable." Vothan's face was grave. "Their technology defies our science, but the worst is their history. They have no record of mercy once battle begins." He tapped a panel. "Here, records of human mercy missions. They come only to conquer, then they rebuild under their rule." Celera shook her head. "We thought we called heroes. We summoned conquerors." That night, Celera attended an emergency council session. The great chamber glowed under the light of 3 moons. Counselors, generals, and ministers crowded the circular dais. At the center, a holoprojector displayed the Earth files Celera had uncovered. She spoke in a steady voice. "Honored counselors, we face a truth we cannot ignore. Humans did not come simply to fight the Kotor. They came to win, completely. Their history shows no mercy to those they conquer." A murmur ran through the chamber. Minister Orin stood and countered. They saved us. They destroyed the Kotor fleet in a single strike. We would be extinct without them. Solara raised her hand. Yes, they saved us. But at what cost? They study our defenses like architects, not allies. They share nothing. Every operation we observe is one step closer to our own fall. General Thera, leader of the frontier fleet, added, their weapons could turn against us at any moment. They hold the power to end our fleets with a thought. Orin slammed his fist. Without them, we die. Silence fell. Solara let the weight of her words settle before she spoke again. We must learn from them, without surrendering our freedom. We must negotiate terms that protect our people. If not, we risk becoming subjects in our own empire. Back on Aegis, Captain Hales received a secure message from Solara. The Virilians demanded a treaty to limit human operations. Hales studied the request. She tapped her comm panel and delivered her reply. We will discuss terms when the Kotor threat is neutralized. Until then, our aid continues under existing agreements. She paused, then added quietly, they may yet learn our price. In the silent corridors of the Virilian palace, Solara stared at the night sky. Human ships gleamed in the distance. She thought of Earth's legends, of conquerors who carved empires, and of survivors who remade worlds. She felt a cold resolve settle in her chest. The Virilian Empire would not kneel without a fight. They would seek knowledge of human weakness before it was too late, and humanity would learn that trust, once broken, cannot be easily repaired. High above, Aegis prepared for the next strike. The galaxy's fate hung in the balance. Secrets of Earth were now in play, and with each revelation, the line between ally and enemy grew ever thinner. Help turns into control. On the pale world of Verith, the last Kotor survivors had fled below the surface. Human forces, once silent saviors, now strode through the ruined cities, erecting towers that hummed with strange blue light. The Virilian Council had granted permission for forward bases, but no one expected how quickly those bases would rise, or how firmly they would stand. The rising bases. Captain Maris Hales oversaw the construction from the command deck of Aegis. Through the viewport, she watched massive cranes lower hexagonal modules onto Verith's ash-gray plains. Each module snapped together with precise clicks, forming fortified compounds in hours. Inside, human engineers assembled weapons racks, shield emitters, and data cores. Lieutenant Garrick stood beside her, fingers tapping on his datapad. 3 bases complete, 2 more to go, he reported. Construction is 50% faster than our estimates. Hales nodded. Good. Once the grid is active, no Kotor can approach without warning. Her lips curved in a faint smile. And no Virilian ship will move in this sector without our approval. Garrick hesitated. Sir, our orders were to help, not to govern. Hales turned to him, gray eyes sharp. Control is part of help. Without order, the weak suffer. She paused, her gaze returning to the settling dust of Verith's plains. Let them thank us later. Virilian doubts. Back on Viral, Ambassador Solara watched holofeeds of the new bases with growing unease. The towers gleamed like sentinels above Virilian forces. Each one sent pulses that reached into space, mapping every star and ship. No Virilian vessel could slip past unnoticed. In the Grand Council chamber, Solara stood before a murmuring assembly. These bases, they are not temporary, she said softly. They are permanent. She tapped the holo display. Each one reaches into our space, not just to guard, but to watch and to command. General Thera slammed a gauntleted fist on the table. They promised only Kotor defense. Now they set up control points near our worlds. Minister Orin rose, face flushed. They saved us. Their terms were vague. We should have read them more closely. He turned to Solara. And what would you have us do? Abandon our new defenders. Solara met his glare. I would ask for limits. We must negotiate boundaries. Without them, we risk losing our rights. A tense silence fell. No one wished to challenge the humans, yet many feared what lay ahead. Protests on Viral. Word spread fast among the common citizens of Viril. Soldiers returned home to find streets lined with human sentries. Local governors awoke to discover new regulations broadcast in booming speakers. Curfews, travel permits, resource quotas. Each announcement carried the soft authority of human voices, calm, firm, non-negotiable. Small gatherings formed in market squares. Virelian merchants, once grateful, now murmured complaints. They block our ships. They tax our food. They teach our children in their schools. One night, a crowd marched past the ambassador's palace. Torchlight danced on worried faces. They chanted, "Our empire, our laws, no human command." Silara's warning. Silara knew what was coming. She met with Vothan and the rebel leaders, deep inside a hidden cave system. "You've won hearts," she said softly. "But now, Earth is ready to strike." Vothan's eyes were tired, but steady. "They rule us in peace or kill us in war. Either way, we're not free." Silara stepped closer. "There is another way. Let me talk to them. One last time." Vothan hesitated, then slowly nodded. One message, one chance. Silara left that night, carrying with her the hopes of two broken empires. The final standoff. Two massive fleets met above the skies of Viral Prime. On one side, Earth's armada, over 40 ships, black and sharp like knives in the sky. Engines humming, weapons ready. On the other, a mix of stolen human ships, old Virelian cruisers, and even mining vessels turned into war machines. Fewer in number, but full of fire. Captain Hales sent the message first. "You are acting against your own government. Surrender or be destroyed." Vothan's reply came seconds later. "We are our government now, and we do not kneel." Target locks blinked red. Fighter ships moved into position. The battle was only seconds away. Silara's broadcast. But before the first missile could fly, every screen blinked. Again. Silara's face appeared. She stood not in a room, but in the open sky, between both fleets, on a tiny transport pod broadcasting to all. Her voice was calm, but it cut like a blade. "I speak to humans, and to my people. We all made mistakes. We called for help, but gave away our voice. You came to help, but stayed to rule. Now we face war, not between enemies, but between pride and fear. If you fire now, there will be no future, only blood and ruins. But if we talk, just talk, we may still find a way. I offer this pod as a table. I ask both leaders, meet me here. End this before it truly begins." The decision. For a long, heavy minute, silence. Then Captain Hales spoke on the secure channel. "She's risking her life out there," Garrick whispered. Hales stared at the screen. Then, slowly, she removed her helmet. "Prepare a shuttle," she said. "No weapons." At the same time, Vothan gave a similar order. Within the hour, two small ships floated quietly towards Silara's pod. And for the first time in weeks, the guns went quiet. The peace table. Inside the pod, Silara sat between two chairs. On her right, Captain Hales of Earth. On her left, Commander Vothan of the Flame. Neither smiled, but both sat. Silara placed a simple data crystal on the table. "This holds a new agreement," she said. "One written by Virelians, approved by humans. A true partnership. You can choose to fight, or choose to sign." Vothan leaned forward. "If we sign, we stay free." Hales looked at the text. "If we sign, we don't rule. We work together." There was silence. Then slowly, both reached forward and signed. Aftermath. The news spread fast. The battle that never happened became legend. The peace that almost died was reborn stronger. Earth began to step back, allowing Virelians to lead their worlds. The flame laid down weapons and helped rebuild. Silura was named the voice between stars. Her pod was placed in orbit, turned into a monument of peace. And though trust would take time to grow, one thing became clear. Humanity was powerful, but they had also learned, not every problem needs war. Sometimes, the bravest thing is to listen.